The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
In 2010, FIFA announced that Qatar will be the host of the 2022 FIFA World Cup, and since then Qatar has spent over $230 billion on infrastructure, building stadiums, hotels, metros and many more, and it is speculated that Qatar would only make around $17 billion, which compared to the 15x amount they have spent is insane. I mean, why would a country spend such a massive amount of money on a single event, and that too for a loss? And why did it even participated in the bidding to host the World Cup in the first place if it doesn't make any profit to them despite making losses? Now, to understand why Qatar has spent so much on an event that will last just for a few weeks, you need to understand two things: FIFA and Qatar. So, football was introduced as a part of Olympic Games in the 1900s, and in 1904 a group of 7 European nations started FIFA with the goal to help organize matches and to provide unity among national soccer associations. But in the 1932 Olympics, when football was removed from the US, FIFA stepped in and decided to organize its own tournament dedicated only to football, known as the World Cup. The first World Cup took place in Uruguay in 1930. 13 teams participated, and it's been held every 4 years since then, except in 1942 and 1946 due to World War II. But when it resumed in 1950, it started gaining more popularity since then because it started being broadcast on TV. And after that, it quickly grew into the world's most loved sporting event and eventually became the world's most viewed sport. To put it in numbers, 1.1 billion people were simultaneously watching the World Cup final when France beat Croatia in 2018. I mean, 1.1 billion people, 13% of the world's population watching the same thing at the same time. That's just insane.
This was his stage.
Sport has the power to inspire and unite people.
But when you have so much attention at one thing, companies are willing to pay endless amount of money to showcase their logo anywhere near it. Now, that's not that surprising. Companies spend money all the time to advertise their products and services. But do you know who else would pay endless amounts of money to get anywhere near the World Cup? Governments and countries. Just take a look at this graph. It shows how much each of the countries has spent to host the World Cup since 1990. The point is that countries are willing to pay endless amount of money to get the World Cup in their country, to increase their soft power, meaning to showcase their stability and to attract the attention of the world to them. Now let's talk about Qatar. Qatar is a tiny desert country located in the Middle East. In 1916, Qatar signed a treaty with the British and became a British protectorate. Qatar, for the most part of its history, was populated by fishing villages and nomadic tribes, and the biggest source of income at the time was pearl diving. Until the 1950s, when Qatar discovered oil, and by 1971 it became an independent country. And only 1 year after its independence, Qatar found a treasure and discovered that it was sitting on the largest natural gas field on earth. And because of the substantial amount of oil and natural gas, Qatar quickly grew from a tiny deserted region into an economic powerhouse with unlimited money. Now, Qatar is a very small country with a population of just 2.93 million people, and 95% of people that live and work here are not even Qatari citizens, and the people that are actually Qatari citizens are some of the richest people on earth. Now, this is where things get more interesting. With the unlimited wealth created by all the Gulf countries came huge competitiveness. And in the 90s, Qatar, along with its neighbors, started to realize that oil and natural gas won't be enough for them, and that the world will eventually find other sustainable resources to run itself. And all these countries were trying to avoid the curse of being just oil and gas producers. They wanted to diversify. and Qatar wanted to distinguish itself from its neighbors. So they invested their billions of dollars into things that were different. And believe me when I say different, it literally means different. Everything from real estate in Singapore and New York City to buying an actual airport in Russia to launching Al Jazeera, an international news channel and TV broadcasting company. And as a part of diversifying and distinguishing itself from its neighbors, Qatar wanted to become a global hub for prestigious international events. Remember that sporting tournament we talked about earlier that's being played every 4 years between 32 teams known as the World Cup? Yeah, that's right. In 2009, Qatar made its biggest play yet, bidding to host the World Cup.
The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
And the surprising thing was, Qatar won the bid with no football infrastructure, extremely hot climate, and most important, not a huge population to spread football in the region. That's what FIFA started for, to spread football across the globe. Now, I'm not going into how Qatar won the bid, the scandal, the corruption, and human rights violations. I'll be explaining it in an upcoming video. The thing was that Qatar won the bid and they needed to build the stadiums and infrastructure to host a World Cup, and they needed to build it fast. Qatar had to build 8 football stadiums, hotel and accommodations for over 1.5 million fans, make roads and metros, and also had to expand its airport. And they just had 12 years to complete the largest infrastructure project in World Cup history. So, what to do now when you have limited time and very less manpower to complete an impossible task? Yeah, that's right. Spend the extra billions of dollars made from the treasure of oil and natural gas, $230 billion to be exact. Now, the organizers have never admitted to the $230 billion price tag. I mean, why would they? That's insane. That's more than 4 times the budget combined of every World Cup since 1990. But Qatar's own finance minister said that $500 million were spent every week for years to meet the deadline. Hosting the World Cup draws massive attention to the host country. There's tourism, foreign trade, potential for jobs and new developments. And this World Cup is also expected to be the most watched ever. 5 billion television viewers, 1.5 million tourists, 17 billion domestic economic activity. In the end, if all goes well, this World Cup will help Qatar build its image as a global sporting hub. Now, you might be thinking, what's next? How did Qatar build such a massive infrastructure in just 12 years with such a low population? And how they even won the bid to host a World Cup in the first place? Watch the next video to find the answer. Subscribe if you liked the video and stay tuned for more.